Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we'll be learning how to cut and sew a shirt. I'll be making use of this fabric, which is 2 yards. I'll be cutting out the front part of the shirt first, and I have my fabric folded into 2. The first thing I'll be marking is my button placket. This is what will carry the buttons and the buttonhole. And in this case, I'll be using 3 inches because the button I'll be using is actually a bit big. When you're making your shirt, you can make use of 2.5 inches instead if you're using a smaller button. The next step is to mark out my shoulder measurement, which is 17 inches. And half of 17 inches is 8.5. I'm going to mark it all the way to my chest line. My chest line here is 9 inches. How do you get your chest line? You get your chest line by dividing your bust circumference by 6. Then you add 1.5 inches. But in this case, I already added my 1 inch slant. The 1 inch slant on the shoulder, I added it already. I'll go ahead and mark out the neck width and the neck depth. For this shirt, I'll be making use of neck width 2.75 and the neck depth will be 3 inches. You can make use of 2.5. It depends on the size you are working with. So I'm going to mark out my 1 inch shoulder slant and I'm going to take it out. The next step for me is to mark out my shoulder to waist measurements. So I'm going to divide half of what I have from the shoulder to the chest line into 2. Then I'll go in by 1/2 inch. And I'm going to connect from the shoulder point to this 1/2 inch. Then I'll mark out my bust circumference and connect to the 1/2 inch. This is the way you create your armhole. So now I'm going to mark my bust circumference and my waist circumference. Then I'm going to add extra 3 inches for ease allowance. You can add as much as 4 inches or 5 inches, depends on how fitted or how free you want your shirt to be. So I'm just going to connect these points from the hip to the bust. In this case, my chest line also serves as my bust line. As you can see, there is no bust line on this fabric. I didn't chalk the bust line. So at this neck area, I'm going to come up by 0.25. This is just to reduce shortage when I'm sewing the placket area. You're going to see it when I'm sewing. I just came up by 0.25 inch. Then I'm going to cut it out. So this is me cutting out the front part. I'm cutting out on where I chalked. But when I get to the armhole, I'm not going to cut out directly on what I chalked. I'm going to leave 1/2 inch stitching allowance. So I'll just go ahead and cut out the sides all the way to the hem. Then I notch that part where the placket is at the hem, so I will know where that point is when I'm folding it. Then I'll just chalk out the wrong side of the fabric so I can identify it when it's So this shirt is going to have a shoulder drop of 1 inch. But instead of me taking out the whole 1 inch at the shoulder area, I'm going to take out 1/2 inch. So the remaining 1/2 inch will serve as the joining allowance. So this means I'm going to take out 1 inch at the shoulder area from the front. Then at the back, I'm going to replace that 1 inch. So I have my fabric folded for the back. And I left 1.5 inches at the upper part to serve as the shoulder extension. Then I'm going to use the neck width I used for the front, and I'm going to use a neck depth of 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to mark out the shoulder measurement, and I'll mark out my chest line. My chest line measurement is taken from the 1.5 inches, not from the top of the fabric. I'll also mark out the 1 inch for my shoulder slants. So now I'm going to mark out half of what I have here, then I'll go in by 1/2 inch, just the way I did for the front armhole. Then I'm going to connect it to the shoulder, then connect it to the bust circumference measurement. So now I'm going to mark from the shoulder to the waistline. Then on the waistline, I'm going to take out the waist circumference plus 3 inches ease allowance, just the same way I did for the front. Then I'll do the same for the bust and do the same for the hip measurements. Then I'll connect these 3 points together. Remember I said there's going to be a shoulder drop of 1 inch. So I'm going to come to this shoulder point here and go up by 1.5 inches. Please take note of the way I am chalking 1.5 inches. You measure 1.5 inches. The 1 inch will serve as the shoulder drop, while the half inch will serve as the joining allowance they're going to use to stitch it to the front. Remember that at the front, we removed half inch from the shoulder instead of 1 inch. So when you join, by the time you join it, you're going to have 1 inch at the back. So when you use this method, your shoulder will drop from the back to the front by 1 inch. So I'm just going to proceed to cutting out the back. Then at the armhole area, just like I did for the front, I'm not going to cut out directly on where I chalked. I'm going to leave about half inch for stitching allowance. To start sewing, I'm going to bring out the front piece and fold in the bottom placket. Remember we left 3 inches for the bottom placket, so I'm going to fold in half inch first, then I'll fold it over to meet the notched part. So now I'm done sewing the bottom placket and I have also joined the shoulder. So this is what it looks like. The next step now is for me to measure around the neck in order to get the measurement I'll be needing for the collar. So I have 19.5 inches. So here we have the pattern of the collar, but when I was filming this part, I didn't realize my phone storage was full, so the video had to cut. If you need a detailed tutorial of this pattern, let me know in the comment section. So I'll just be giving a quick explanation of how I was able to achieve this pattern. For the collar stand, I marked out half of the 20 inches that I measured earlier on the neck, and I measured 10 inches. Then I marked the middle point and I went up by half inch. From that half inch, I marked out 1 inch all the way through, just the way you're seeing. Then on this part, I came in by 1 inch to create that curve, that collar curve you see on shirts. So I'll be using 2 inches for the height of my collar, 2 inches, then the width is going to be 10 inches, which is half of my neck circumference. Then at the center part, I'm going to come up by half inch and connect it all the way. Then I'm going to go in by 1 inch, the same 1 inch I went in by at the collar stand. I'm going to go in by 1 inch to create the collar effect. So I'm going to proceed to cut out the collar stand and the collar, and I'll be cutting out 2 pieces each of these on fabric. So now I have cut out my collar and collar stand. I have 2 pieces each, and I have also added interfacing, and I'm also going to notch the center part of both the collar and the collar stand. Notching the center part is very important. I'm going to go ahead and sew this part of the collar. I'm going to sew it all around. Note that I added half inch allowance to all the sides of the collar and also the part I'll be fixing to the neck. Now I'm done sewing this part of the collar. I'm just going to go ahead and notch it to avoid it to be too bulky. Then I'm going to turn it. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are here to, and turn on the notification bell so you get notified when I post a new video. At this point, I'll be top stitching the part of this collar, the upper part of the collar that I just turned to the right side. I'm going to be top stitching it. You can decide not to top stitch. It depends on the fabric you're working with or the type of collar you're trying to create. I'm done top stitching. Can you see how neat the stitches are? Your work should be as neat as this. So now I'm going to place the collar at the middle of each of the collar stand. Remember we have 2 pieces for the collar stand. So I'm going to place the collar at the center and I'm going to pin it down. Note the way I place the collar and the way I'm pinning it down. I'm just going to pin it all round. After pinning, I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew it all around. So now I'm done sewing and I'm just going to take off the pins and trim off the excess at this area so I can turn it to the right side. Now that I've turned it to the right side, I'm going to go ahead and top stitch these parts. Like I said earlier, it is not necessary you top stitch. I'm just doing this for a more neater job. and because of the kind of fabric I'm working with. Now this is what it looks like when I'm done top stitching. As you can see, it looks very neat. So I'm going to notch the center part of my neckline, and I'm going to place the center part of the collar on the center part of my neckline. I'll go ahead and pin it all round in order to have a stable stitch. Note that I am sewing this on the wrong side of the fabric, not on the right side, and I am sewing just one part of the collar on the wrong side of the fabric. So now I'll go ahead to sew this part I just pinned. So now I'm done sewing that part, and the next step now is for me to fold the other side over the fabric. This is the right side of the fabric, so you can also pin it down at this point. Just make sure you are folding it in neatly. You're going to fold it and sew it all round. So now I'm done sewing the collar, and you can see how neat it is, though it looks a bit rumpled because I'm here to iron it. So the next step now is for you to take it to the ironing table and give it a good press. You need to give it a good steam press. I've gone ahead to join the sides of the shirt, and I'm just going to mark out the armhole in order for me to know the measurement for my sleeve. So now I have my sleeve cut out, and I did this off camera. If you need a tutorial of how to cut a basic sleeve, I have a tutorial on this channel, and I'll be putting the link up here. So now I'm going to go ahead and fix the sleeve to the shirt, and I'll also aim the down part. This is what the shirt looks like on my beautiful client. You can see how neatly tailored it is, so I made it as a two-piece for her. If you enjoyed watching this video, kindly like and drop a comment in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video.